Hello. Okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just happened to stumble upon this video, then thank you for joining me. Here is my review of The Last Showgirl, directed by Gia Coppola, the granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola. The plot of The Last Showgirl focuses on a middle-aged Las Vegas showgirl who is faced with an uncertain future after learning that the show she has performed in for 3 decades is scheduled to close. So, let's start with one of the many highlights of this experience for me, and that is Pamela Anderson. She plays a Shelley Gardner, a 57-year-old showgirl who has performed for the last 3 decades. And we follow her character as she discovers that this show that she has so much passion for, that she's poured so much of her time into over the last 30 years, she discovers that it's ending, and her character is going through this crisis, this sort of realization of what is happening in her life in this moment, which is resulting in her to sort of look back and sort of reflect on what those last 30 years have actually meant to her and what may lie ahead. And it is beautifully brought to life. It is beautifully captured by how Pamela Anderson brings this character to life. It's really a performance that's been, or feels like it's been pulled from the heart. It feels raw. It's very emotional, and the performance from Pamela Anderson feels very authentic. It feels real. This feels like I am watching a character go through this moment in her life where her world is just collapsing around her. And it is as a result of how she brings this character to life, it's just very tragic. It kind of really sort of adds to the emotional weight of this experience. It's an experience that is tainted with this sadness, but also a joy, because you understand and you can sense the passion that this character of Shelley Gardner has for the job that she's doing, for the profession that she's in. You sense that, and it's because of how Pamela Anderson beautifully brings this character to life. It's a very raw, emotional, authentic performance, and I just found it absolutely captivating to watch. And that's the same for every other performance within this movie. Dave Bautista as Eddie, this producer, is also amazing. He sort of delivers a very somber performance. It feels very grounded. It feels very real. You can kind of feel sort of the pain and sort of what the character is going through sort of emotionally by just sort of observing how he brings the character to life through these very kind of nuanced expressions. He is simply beautiful here. Dave Bautista has got some range. Like, when it comes to, you know, as an actor, I really admire Dave Bautista, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him in sort of more kind of leading roles, because yeah, for example, with The Last Showgirl, he's really sort of showing what he can do as an actor. And he, again, yeah, really kind of delivers a very authentic and real and a very sort of emotionally heavy performance. And then you've also got Jamie Lee Curtis as Annette, a former showgirl who's now a waitress. And she is also phenomenal in this movie. She is simply beautiful because, again, it's a performance that feels very authentic, very real, very natural, and as a result sort of adds to sort of the tragicness and the sadness of what this movie's exploring with its themes. You know, it's beautifully brought to life, this character of Annette by Jamie Lee Curtis, and again, she's another performance that I just found myself really captivated by. And so, with all that being said, that does somewhat sort of lead me into a minor gripe that I did have with this movie when it comes to the characters. Now, they do a beautiful job. Everyone does a fantastic job of bringing these characters to life, and it's what, for the most part, really allowed this experience to work for me on an emotional level. But the issue that I had was I never felt like I really truly understood these characters and their relationships with one another. And it all somewhat feels a little breezy, and a lot of that is purely because I loved how Jamie Lee Curtis, Pamela Anderson, Dave Bautista were bringing these characters to life. These were characters that I wanted to spend more time with. I wanted to know more about them, but it just all felt a little bit too breezy. We just didn't really spend enough time to sort of really allow these characters and their relationships to breathe and fully come to life, which to some degree somewhat takes away a little bit from sort of the emotional impact. At the same time, it works because of these stellar performances. So even though I did have an issue with us not really being able to spend more time with these characters and for these characters and their relationships to sort of really kind of come to life, and so for us to really kind of understand them and sort of really, you know, like we know where they are at life because that is being told through how they're bringing these characters to life and what it is they're going through within the story. But I just felt myself really wanting to know more. You know, I wanted to spend more time with characters like Annette to sort of truly get to understand them and their relationship with Shelley Gardner and sort of, you know, and sort of what it is that they are going through really emotionally, even though that is brought to life, like I said, beautifully by Jamie Lee Curtis. I just felt like I just wanted more time. But then that kind of does lead into another positive, really, which is what the movie achieves you with how the narrative plays out. There is a franticness to it in regards to sort of just how the narrative plays out and how sort of the movie is shot, really, from a visual perspective. And then again, that kind of sort of that aspect of how this film is constructed brings to life that kind of the sort of the hecticness and sort of the urgency and sort of the crisis of what these characters are going through. So it's almost like, you know, a positive plays into a negative, but then the negative plays into a positive. It's almost like a balancing act, and I can see what Gia Coppola here was attempting or was trying to sort of achieve, and she does a good job at kind of immersing you within these characters. You know, you can feel that franticness and sort of that urgency and that kind of sort of the crisis and the pain of what these characters are having to go through because of what is happening in their life within this moment. But it also then kind of results in me just wanting a little bit more when it comes to those relationships and sort of these characters, and a lot of that is again down to one of the major highlights, which is the performances and just how these characters are brought to life. I absolutely adored the look of this movie, how this story was brought to life from a visual perspective. The cinematography here is gorgeous. It was shot on 16mm, and as a result kind of really brings to life the gritty realism that these characters are going through, kind of really sort of heightening sort of the emotional weight I felt of its story. But it also kind of adds, just from the way in which this film is shot, with how the sort of how they use the camera, also the choice of the camera that is used as well. It was a handheld. It kind of all sort of aids this and sort of adds what is a very kind of dreamlike quality to the experience. It almost has this kind of melancholy taint to it, a sort of a sensation of a sort of dying vibrance that is beautifully brought to life through the cinematography. The cinematography is by an Durald Arkapaw. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Apologies if it's incorrect. But there is almost a gritty, authentic realism to it, which again kind of really sort of just allows you, or allows me, the viewer anyway, to be sort of immersed within these characters' stories, for it to feel incredibly authentic and real. And as a result of how the movie looks, like I said, it has that kind of very melancholy sort of taint to it, that kind of taint of sadness that kind of just really adds to sort of the emotional current of its story. This film is gorgeous. I absolutely loved sort of the look of this film. Like I said, to really kind of, it just had that kind of very dying vibrance about it. The entire experience of The Last Showgirl is just tainted with this sadness, this incredible sadness. But you've also got a sensation of joy there, because for me personally, in a way, I found it to be quite inspiring, because its story sort of encapsulates what it means to really chase a dream and live it. To not just be stuck in a mundane job because it's the easier solution, and maybe your parents are saying, you know, that's what you've got to do because you need to earn money, but actually chase those dreams, not be put off by them. And this is the aspect of the movie for me, or aspect of its story, that kind of really made it relatable. Like, yes, it's also about women sort of coming to a certain age in this industry, in the entertainment industry, and then just being cast aside. But I felt like it was much more universal with what it was that the movie was trying to say or tell when it comes to its messages. And as a result, it's what allowed me to get, along with the performances and what we're witnessing unfold within the story, it's what really allowed me to be immersed on an emotional level. And I have to mention the score by Andrew Wyatt. The score, it's a great score that conveys and captures sort of the emotional and mental or psychological aspect of its characters, and also that sort of like dreamlike quality of its story. It's conveyed here beautifully within the score, but it also captures the tragicness and pain of what it feels like to once be loved and admired, then cast aside. You know, the horror of realizing you're being cast aside and no longer loved or wanted for what you have devoted most of your life to. A job that's not just any job, but a passion, a dream, but a dream that's now dying. This is brought to life beautifully within the score, and you could kind of just feel it in certain moments of, again, even though I feel like perhaps the writing on a sort of an emotional level kind of lacks the complexity perhaps it needs and the time it needs to sort of really kind of fully understand the characters and their relationships and sort of where they're going, the music kind of fills in those gaps for me and sort of really sort of expresses or conveys and captures so much of what these characters are going through and what they have been through in their past to live this dream and what they're about to sort of, what direction their life is about to go into. And so it's kind of funny because a lot of the gripes I did have are made up for in sort of certain other elements of how the movie was constructed, like the performances and the score. But Last Showgirl, an experience that has or is tainted with this incredible sadness throughout, but also a glimmer of hope and joy as well. The movie works for me because of so many different elements. Yes, I had minor gripes with it. It's not perfect, and perhaps it's not as emotionally profound or impactful as it could have been, but it does at the same time what I felt like it needed to do. And a lot of that is aided by the performances from all of the cast, from sort of a visual perspective, a technical perspective in how the story is constructed. Just going back to what I said, there is a franticness to how the story is told for sort of the use of the handheld and just how the narrative flows. But then it also kind of brings to life the franticness really and the urgency of what these characters are going through within this moment that we are witnessing come to life. I really enjoyed this experience. It was quite a mesmerising experience. Yes, I had kind of minor issues with it, but at the same time, it was an experience that had me immersed. I loved spending time with these characters. At the same time, I really wanted to spend more time with these characters because I never really sort of felt like I truly got to understand them and their relationships. But at the same time, when I left this movie, it had an effect on me. Even though maybe it lacked kind of the punch, I feel like the third act and how the movie concludes was just beautifully done. it was bittersweet. And as I walked away from this movie, it was like, oof, you know, yeah, it did what it needed to do. So yeah, I really liked The Last Showgirl. I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it. And I will be giving The Last Showgirl They are my thoughts on The Last Showgirl, but what did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? And please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for Mickey 17, one of my anticipated movies of the year. Really looking forward to it. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone again that have connected to the channel, whatever it be, subscribing, commenting, liking. It means an awful lot. I'm approaching that 500 milestone, and again, it will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek rambling on about film and TV, but it means an awful lot because this is my passion. I absolutely love filmmaking. It's always been my dream job, and you know, this is not just a hobby, but it's a passion. It's something I adore, and it gives me the opportunity to really express that love with like-minded people. So yeah, I've rambled on a little bit there. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.